To answer the question, nobody has actually officially asked me, how do I use these decks for divination when there is no little white book, and why is that, to be honest? Hi everybody, I'm Mariana and I'm the creator of Divinlestis Botanical Oracle decks. And since by the time I'm recording this today, which is Sunday, this video I think will go out on Wednesday as it's usual now. But at the time of my recording, this is the last day to place your pre-orders, and I go to production more or less tomorrow. And along this line, along this note, I wanted to maybe share a little video about working with the decks. In the last one, we have curated ourselves a deck. This is my own working deck at this moment. And even though I have not received this question at all, to be honest, which you people don't ask enough questions, you should. I anticipate this being a question that some of you may be thinking, and that's the question: how do I use a deck full of just herbs and Latin names for divination when that deck does not have a little white book? And I wanted to give you maybe some ideas. If you see some ears, this is Odin. He's sitting in front of me, and behind me here, that's Hef, and they will be walking around because this is my cat-infested living room, and I have just kicked myself out a bunch of flyers. Let's see. To answer the question, nobody has actually officially asked me, how do I use these decks for divination when there is no little white book, and why is that, to be honest? The reason why I chose not to have a booklet for these decks is maybe a little bit profound, but it's actually very, very simple. I don't want to put my words and my thoughts and my associations into somebody's or anybody's head. The relationships we have with these plants are deeply personal, and of course that's on the animistic side of things, like the relationship with the plant spirit, but also on the just purely individual personal level. I could love strawberries. They could be the best fruit that ever has been. It's my favorite flavor. I have the best memories with my grandmother's strawberry garden and going early in the morning to pick ripe strawberries. Could be the best thing ever for me. You could have allergies to strawberries, and you could think that that's the most disgusting fruit that ever has been. You could have seen one of those images where a strawberry from the seeds, new plants sprout, which is one of the most disgusting pictures I've ever seen. I'll maybe put it up. It's it's a botanical marvel, but also it's quite unsettling to see. And these two perspectives can completely color how you see the card for the wild strawberry in my deck. And I want to leave you that freedom and that openness to read the cards and give the plants and of course fungi and mushrooms the meaning that is meaningful to you. That's one side. You could purely read them based on your own experiences, your own associations, and basically what you think of the plant and what it brings up in your mind. You can of course read the deck as well through using herbals, or on the most basic level you could use Wikipedia. As in, I don't know, I'll just pick a random card, and I have picked rue, Ruta graveolens. You could put that into Wikipedia and just cursory look at something that just jumps out from the text at you, like bibliomancy a little bit, but generally just look at stuff that jumps out. You could look into physical herbal, like an herbal book. A lot of these are not in classical herbal materia medica or herbal books, but some of them are. Some of them are in magical herbalism books or any other kind of books that you may find. You could either build yourself a curated deck based on which plants you do have literature for, or you could go online. And just to demonstrate, okay, this is my current working deck. I will not be picking at random. I will just like take cards from the top. If I pulled out Atropa Belladonna, which is the Deadly Nightshade. If I were doing a reading with a question in mind or without a question, depends on the spread that you use. If I pulled the Deadly Nightshade, will it focus? Maybe. If I pulled out the Deadly Nightshade, I could interpret it many other ways. Of course, it's a deadly, poisonous, toxic plant, which only eating a couple of berries could kill you. To me, it is also associated with my own childhood, where we were very often during like the scouts hikes that we would go to, we were very often warned, hey, if you find blueberries, be very careful not to confuse them with the belladonna fruits. Be very careful what you eat in the forest. Blueberries are very nice. These berries are super, super poisonous. But through my childhood, I actually never met her. So the belladonna, like we call it rulik, was a very mysterious plant, like this looming danger of the forest that I never actually saw. So it was a little bit mythical in my mind. We saw a lot of blueberries always, but we never met an actual belladonna plant. So for me, it was like this ethereal creature of legends plant, which here there is something else I could have interpreted in my reading. It is also a witch's herb. It is used in flying ointments. The tropane alkaloids in this plant are hallucinogenic, so it could be used for altering the states of mind. And I do not recommend you doing this if you don't know what you're doing, but that's what the constituents of this plant actually like do. They are hallucinogenic. So in like a different reading or in this reading, I could interpret it as changing my worldview, or altering my perception, doing something a little bit differently. Or I could interpret it as straight up danger, for example. If I, for example, picked up the foxglove. Can you see? I think so. There is also multiple ways I could interpret it. It's a beautiful flower. It's often the jewel of the garden, but it's also a highly toxic plant. So of course you have the immediate association with danger and warning, and like the death card and change of states. But it's also used in heart medicine. So it could mean a mending of the heart, for example. The name foxglove, it sounds like the gloves of the fox, but it's probably, I'm speaking off the top of my head, but it's probably also a double meaning with the foxglove, which is like the fair folk, so the fae. So there is the connection with the fairy world, if you would like to interpret it that way. So again, here you have a couple of different examples for one toxic plant that are in various different directions based on what you interpret. Another card, let's do this one, for example, the common daisy. If I were to pick this card up today in like a random reading, I would be reminded of the fact that you could find daisies flowering in middle of the winter. They don't care what season it is to bloom. You can find them blooming, at least here where I am, in January, in December, any time of the year, you can find one blooming somewhere. In my area, they were also used for the does he, doesn't he type of divination, yes, no, where you would like pick up the flower and like pluck each little petal, and based on which one you picked last, it would be yes or no. So that's also like a possible interpretation, either through the yes or no, or for example that it's a binary choice, it's a dilemma, it's something to consider like both ways. You could also just take, if you never seen a daisy, if you don't want to Google what it is, you could also just take for example, the Latin name perennis, which means perennial, which means like every year, like long living. and that could also be a clue for you, which also, to be honest, to me at least, with my association with it, goes back to the fact that you can find it blooming any time of year, just all like year round. Another card that we could like look at, which is one of the cards that don't actually grow in my vicinity, and that's the iboga, which is an African plant. And apparently, like, this is again from the top of my head, but it's the association I carry with it, so I would probably interpret that card this way. It's one of very few plants that are actually aphrodisiacs for women. With aphrodisiacs, it's a very interesting topic in terms of like natural medicine and herbalism. A lot of the plants that are associated with having aphrodisiacal properties, especially on women, are usually plants that have that property from the perspective of men. So it's a lot of sedative plants, like relaxant plants, plants that, loosen you up. It's plants that make the blood flow, for example. But there is very limited number of plants that would actually work by the definition of the word aphrodisiac, which is like increasing sexual libido for women, increasing the sexual drive. And iboga is said to be one of those plants that if you like take it as like a drug, but not as in, oh, this is going to be a side tangent. At least how I was taught herbalism, drug is medicine. Nowadays we associate the drug as in recreational, often illegal, but generally the term drug is meant for like medicine and medicinal use. So if I, as a woman, were to take iboga as like medicine or a drug, it would help me actually physically be more aroused or like more excited, stimulated. In terms of divination, I could go like a couple different routes. Of course, I could go the like aphrodisiacal arousal part, or like I could go to like sensual, needing more self-care. I could go more literally, that I need to focus on my own pleasure. If this reading was done for somebody whose partner is a woman with like female hormones and like female biology, this card or like the iboga could tell them that they need to focus more on the pleasure of their partner. And it could be like sexually, but also you could take it more, depending on again the reading and the cards next to it, you could take it more broadly, like the pleasure, like life pleasure in general, taking care of your partner, focusing on their needs and stuff like that. So this is, for example, one of the interpretations I could use. I could of course look the plant up like more specifically. You could divine, for example, I don't know, from the place it grows, that it's an African plant. It's, for me, it's like super tropical, super exotic. It's a plant that, for example, here I couldn't actually grow it through like the whole year round. And you could look at it in multiple different ways. If, for example, it wasn't a relationship reading, or it wasn't a reading for like self-care. Another card, just as an example, is pulmonaria. Here we call it blitznik, which means it's langwort. It's basically the same in English as well. And that could tell me a lot about, first of all, my physical health. If I were to if this was relevant in the reading, it could tell me the need to like breathe, for like space, for like expansion of the body. So I could view this plant again in many different ways, from physical and like health-wise to more spiritual expansion, breathing room, relaxation, and stuff like that. Here is another one that I like, maybe we'll use as an example. Will you focus? Which is the dead man's fingers. It's a mushroom. It actually looks like often looks like fingers. This I could look it up in mycological literature. I could just also look at it as the dead man's fingers, and I could interpret it based on the context of the reading as, I want to say, kicking a dead horse, or like getting out or pulling up something that is already irrelevant, digging up into the past, or for example, very much in the line of the death card in tarot, which is like change and transformation. Letting something go to like renew something else in that line of thing. Or it could be like, again, if you took it from like the fingers part, it could be a warning that somebody is putting their fingers into your own business, and like a warning for protection, for example, that you like need to isolate your own. So these are like the many ways you could use the botanical decks that I create as divination tools, and use your own imagination, your own association, your own knowledge to fuel your own readings and to give meaning to the card in the specific reading that you are doing, based on the context, based on the question, based on what comes up. You could also very easily read the cards just based on the illustration, without actually having an association with the plant. This is wild garlic, and you could just look at this, not know it's wild garlic. You could either read the ursinum and have the association with like the bears. You could look at the flowers, see that there is like many different small flowers within the big flowers, so you could interpret it as for example, one project or one thing that springs a lot of different side things. You could interpret it as maybe you would see this as the little onion that it is, and you could see that something has multiple layers. So this is also a way that you could interpret the cards as well, without actually like knowing anything about the plants. Looking at something else that will give me ideas how to like show you based on this interpretation itself. You could look at another like mushroom here. This is the edible boletus. It's delicious. We here like go foraging for it every year. You could actually like buy it nowadays in like food delivery services. It's a yummy mushroom. If you don't know anything about this mushroom, you could see just the illustration, and again based on it's not focusing at all, but I guess you can like see the gist of it. You could look at these two mushrooms and either interpret it as parent and a child, both in literal sense as somebody's either parent or somebody's child, or like a child project, or like something that comes out of something else, like a different path, a side project, stuff like this. You could interpret it as something bigger, somebody bigger protecting something smaller, without actually having to know anything about this mushroom. I wish personally that these decks really give you the freedom to let yourself go and let yourself off the leash and let yourself just explore what comes up in your mind, what comes up through the readings, to just have a spread and say the first thing that comes to your mind, without having to think about, oh my god, does this align with what's written in the book, does this align with the generally accepted interpretation of this card. As much as it is having these decks an exercise in botany and exercise in animism and getting to know these plant spirits, it's also an exercise in mindfulness when you go out and look for them. It should also, to my mind, it should also be an exercise in intuition and trusting yourself as well, and learning that what you see and the first thing that comes to your mind connects you to some sort of source, a source of things where like everything is known and everything is connected, and where you can pull information without having to know the exact source. From my perspective, just to leave you with something like the other side of the coin, of course, if you are practicing divination. Before the divination, cleanse your space, ask your guides to join you, ask questions of specific spirits. Don't leave the source of the information completely open, as in just ask them to the ether. Either ask yourself, I ask your higher self, ask your guides, ask the plants, ask your patron god, patron goddess, whoever it is, for answers and for guidance, and then just leave the images and the associations and the feelings that arise with the divination like come through you, and just let them out. Learn to trust yourself and your judgment and your intuition in the process, and use these cards as well as a tool to help you practice that. I hope this helps. Please let me know if you have any questions. As I said, you people ask too little of me. You should ask me all the questions. I'd be super happy to answer any of them. Even these types of videos are a joy for me to make. So I hope this was helpful to anybody at all. And I think you can use this kind of method with any deck. Basically, even with like standard tarot decks. Use just the moment, the context, and what springs to you from the card, be it the colors, the shapes, the symbols, the images, whatever, to speak to you, and like let the first thing out and see where that takes you. I hope this helps. Thank you for watching this far. As a treat, I have a cat to show you as a thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye bye.